it. Our time is in a circle. If you want a hint of this, you take a look at the quantum energies and what is being discovered about time. And you will see that a three-dimensional outlook is very rigid and boxed and segmented and patterned, and you must have time. But as soon as you get out of 3 dimensions, you don't go to 4, you don't go to 5, or even 6 or 7. You go to all. It becomes multidimensional, not numbered as 6 or 7. And if you did number them, you'd be linear. You'd still be in 3. And it's confusing. And that's where you're going. So some of you get messages from Spirit that says you don't belong here, you belong in another city, move there, and things will happen. You jump up, you sell everything and move there and nothing happens. And we've said this to you many, many times, and my partner teaches this, and the phrase is, who told you to do it now? And that was just one tiny change of a paradigm of communication between the other side of the veil and what you're used to here. Spirit will reveal things that are potentials for you long before they actuate in your 3D. You don't manifest them right away. But it's guidance for you to feel and be wise and move when you feel it's correct to move. Now that is free will with a little push. It wouldn't be free will, would it, if Spirit said, get up and move? It wouldn't. And so when you get these messages, be circumspect and understand that you are being given a beautiful, beautiful message, that there's more for you in another place. And then understand to look around and feel and use that which is your intuitive power and the tools that you're being developed to know when to go there. And we've said that before, but there's more, dear ones. There's a lot more. Because things are starting to shift and change, and human beings think a certain way and then react a certain way because that's all you've ever done. When you learned to read, dear ones, you had a primer, a reading primer, and you can, some of you remember this. As the neurons connected and the language became there and you recognized the letters and the words and you could start to read. This was the tool that was used in your consciousness of society to let you read. And it worked. Now I want to ask you, where is that primer today? Are you carrying it with you? And the answer is no, because it got absorbed into that which you call your intellect, into that which is your cellular knowledge and structure. You simply read. I want you to start applying this to the way Spirit works with you. How would we show an unbeliever something that is beyond that which they expected? They may have a vision. You may have a dream. You may have a feeling, a very, very powerful feeling. And in this, you're shown something. And the neurons start connecting and you start understanding there's more to life than I thought. Look, I'm having visions, I'm having dreams. These things are being shown to me. Isn't God great? Look, I've got a message here. It's a wonderful message. And then suddenly it stops. And what does a human do? They usually go into a dark room and say, dear God, what did I do wrong? It stopped. Did you ever think that perhaps there's been a connection and you don't need those anymore because now they're intuitive? And you're going to walk around the planet having the knowledge that used to have to come from a primer vision. What about that? You graduate. So for those of you who wondered if you lost it, what if you graduated instead? You see, it's not what you think. Some of the things that brought you here, that you loved, and the feelings that you had, have moved past that. And now you're walking differently. It's inside you. You know the truth. You don't need those simplistic things anymore to take you to a place of euphoria that you didn't expect. Instead, you're asked to generate them on your own. To sit in a place and create the peace. The same feeling you had in the vision. The same feeling you had in the dream. Being taken care of, being loved. Maybe seeing a face. You can do this yourself. You're on your own because you are a piece of the creative source that is graduating. Could I make it any clearer? That's just one thing. There are other things we've never spoken of. You make an assumption things are linear and singular. We have spoken about being an awakened soul. You understand that there's more than what you've been told. You start making the connection that the spiritual core of everything is yours. You are a piece of this. And you become alert and awake, much to the chagrin of your neighbors and your friends and the people you live with. You change. But you make an assumption. The weekend that you have just passed through contained profound teaching about cycles. And if you paid attention, you saw that the cycles were unique to the paradigm of what you were looking at. You had an earth cycle, you have a spiritual cycle, you have a weather cycle, you have a personal cycle. And yet, somehow, some way, there's the idea that if you awaken, everything is going to come together at once. It isn't. Let me tell you, there are waves of graduation and cycles. And because you didn't get them all at once again, you go into a dark room when nobody is looking and say, what did I do wrong? Dear Spirit, I've done everything. I know you're there. I can feel you there. I can feel the love. I'm awake. I'm awake. I'm awake. So why is this happening in my body? Why can't I shake this habit? Why can't I get the job I want? You said I could. I'm awake. Look, I believe in you. How much patience do you have to understand that all things happen as they should in the cycles that are designed for you at the right time, at the right place? And if you had them too soon or too late, they wouldn't work. They wouldn't work. And so we heard you. Did you know that you're actually in control? And that the more you understand about these things that happen in waves and cycles and the timing of them in your situation, the more you can relax and say, thank you, it's here. All right, there are those in the room that have been waiting for the healing. I know who you are. Do you know it's coming? And it's going to come appropriately. And when the time is right, it's going to come completely. I got 8 people in this room that need to drop a habit in order to live longer. You know who I'm talking to. And you say, well, I've tried and it doesn't work. Maybe there's a timing connected with it. Have you looked at this? Have you listened today? Have you looked at the cycles of your life and the times where it's more appropriate to change, where it's easier to change? Do you understand why there's energy in astrology, in numerology? Because these things around you are part of you. The magnetic grid is part of your consciousness. It reacts to your consciousness. That makes it part of the heliosphere of the sun, which also reacts. That means that the solar system is connected to you. No wonder astrology works. Have you thought about it? Are there cycles for you to look at? Have you really looked into these kinds of things to know when there might be an appropriate time that is better for you to heal? Some of you have been trying to get ahead for so long and get out of the cycle, you say, where you're not abundant. And you worry about it. And it's part of the fear scenario. And what makes it worse is the fact that you haven't understood that it comes in waves. Not everything comes together. And one of the things that you have to do is an awakening first. And that then creates a maturity. The maturity then creates a connection ability for you to actually believe things are happening and see them in your future. One thing leads to another, and you graduate, and then it begins. And you find yourself at the right time, at the right place, crawling out of those habits that you had or the abundance issues that you had. And some of you said, well, it took long enough. Not realizing that it was perfectly timed. How many of you have given up? Well, I got half of it right, but I don't know about the other half. Not understanding, it's still there, it's still coming, it's still in your future. And what are you doing with it? Are you tapping your toe and saying, anytime, Spirit? Is there an irritation? Maybe there's even an anger. Not understanding. It's yours. Let me give you a hint and a secret. You're blocking the creation of what you're asking for. You're blocking the creation of it. The timing may have come and gone. Oh, there'll be another cycle. You're going to tap your toe through that cycle as well? Or you're going to see it as accomplished in your mind in the future and celebrate being abundant, being healthy, having the things that you have asked for because we want you to stay here. You are a creator of reality, but you can't do it with 3D paradigms. You can't do it like you were raised. You can't do it with discipline and punishment and all the things that you think that are God. It doesn't work that way. Does this surprise you? Dear ones, this is more complex than you think, and yet it's so simple. As you awaken and discover compassion and love for yourself, you can then generate it for others. We said it before. You've got to love yourself first. That is where the compassion starts to be generated that's so pure, as you saw in the Masters. That's why people then would be attracted to you. This is how you change the planet. It's emotion, isn't it? It's compassion. It changes the environment around you. People can feel it. You walk into a room, you can feel whether there's a strain there, whether there's anger there, or whether there's a release and happiness and joy there. So why not understand it? You're the creator of all that. You're your own compassion engine. You're your own reality engine. What's your perception of all this? Things are changing. There was a time when we told you that you could talk to that which you call your innate, and you could do it without it being out loud, and you only had to do it once or twice, and innate would listen. Those were the old days. Because suddenly, speaking out loud and your voice into the atmosphere around you, coming back into your ears and hearing yourself say something has more power than it ever has in the history of the planet. With the energy shift, with the magnetic shift, with all of the things we've talked about, A new paradigm is here.